represent. You represent the community very well, and you represent Purdue very well. And to the Kiwanis group in general, thank you so very much for the playground. Some of you may or may not know I grew up in West Lafayette. I've lived here all my life. The one guy back there knows because we went to school together. Steve Riggs and I grew up together. And also the other guy over there, that Steve Curtis guy too. But playground equipment back in the day was a little different than it is now. We had a park by where I live called Lommel Park. And they had some interesting playground equipment there that I think was specifically designed to keep us from growing into our adult ages. I mean, they had this slide that was just this, 20-foot sheet of stainless steel that it was set right in the sun. And it was angled. It was this triangulated slide. And honestly, you would touch it and you would burn. You would burn yourself. It was just... And then this other thing, it was like a steel merry-go-round that hung from chains that had a metal pole in the middle of it. And I was fortunate, I was kind of tall for my age, and the older guys would say, "Hey John, could you go inside there and see if that?" And he'd stand and he'd get clanged in the head. Maybe that's why I ran for elected office. I got clanged one too many times. But what we're going to talk about today, no I didn't, because I love this place and it's really an honor to be your mayor. But what we're going to talk about today is the State Street project. And if you have not heard about that yet, then I'm not doing a very good job of promoting this. This is an idea that came up about 4 years ago. And it came out of a conversation of what we can do as a city and as a community to improve our transportation system. Now, the original design was to just fix it from the river to Grant Street. State Street from the river to Grant Street. And the intention was to do what we've been trying to do for some time, is to have better connectivity between the two cities and to make the roads safer and some of the businesses there more accessible. And we did a presentation of this project to some folks at Purdue. And one of the guys in the audience was this gentleman by the name of Mitch Daniels. And after it was over, he came up and he said, "John," he said, "we'd like to be a part of that. Would you be okay?" And I said, "You got any money?" And if you know his reputation as governor, he just he looked up at me because he's about that. And he said, "Yeah, sure, if you can afford it." Well, now 4 years later, we're in the process of where we're basically starting to break ground on this project, and we're going to be moving forward. Now, some of you probably have already been inconvenienced by some of the work that's going on in the city of West Lafayette and the city of Lafayette. Sorry, that's progress. But the reality of it is, they said, "Do you and Tony ever talk? Do you know what you're doing?" Well, and Laura can testify to this because that's kind of sort of her job. She testifies and makes people testify. But Tony and I have known each other for over 30 years. And like I tell everybody, he is the second longest relationship I've ever had in my life. The first is my wife, and then comes Tony. And so, yes, we talk all the time. And we talk about not just the projects, but our visions for our cities. And we talk about how this is our Renaissance period. This is a time when we, because of our relationships, because of what's going on in our communities, and because of the buy-in and the support that we have of our citizenry, we can make great change. And we feel that we would be remiss if we didn't take advantage of this. And so this is sort of our vision. We are trying to make sure that what is known as Greater Lafayette really, really is great. So the State Street project is part of this overall process that we're going to be going through for about the next 3 years. And the only thing that I can tell you is that whatever route you're acclimated to using to get from point A to point B, be open-minded. And be prepared for change. Okay, I gotta put my glasses on. I can't see the button here. Hang on for a second. This is the other side of 50 coming up. Okay. Yay. It seemed to work, so that worked. Okay, the project is obviously a project that involves the cities and Purdue University. And again, to make a real long story short, Purdue's involvement cannot be understated. The original plan for the project was to be about a quarter of what it is now. We were just basically going to clean up some roads, improve the connectivity between the cities, and really dedicate a lot of that available space for bikes and pedestrians. One thing that we've learned in our very short time in office is that we've got about 40,000 folks that like to use anything but a car. They'll default to a car if they have to, but their major form of transportation is by walking, running, using a bicycle, using a skateboard, using this thing that's called a hoverboard. Has anybody ever seen one of those hoverboards? Yeah. Craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm looking at this guy just flying by my window, and he's not bouncing, he's just standing still. And I went out and looked at him, he's standing on this, looks like he's standing on a skateboard sideways. Incredible stuff. But that is just the beginning of how folks are going to be getting around. So we wanted to make sure that we had this thing done and taken care of. And then Purdue and the Purdue Research Foundation have been instrumental in assisting us with our design plan and also in assisting us with the cost. Obviously, the purpose is to remake State Street, and we want to make sure that we have the connectivity between the two cities, and we also want to focus on our riverfront. I believe that we've had conversations before about the riverfront project, the REC, Wabash River Enhancement Corporation. What we're basically going to do is between the two cities is improve our Wabash River, improve the opportunities for recreational activities down there, and again, just make it a real destination point. And the State Street project and what's going on in the city of Lafayette are going to be instrumental in that concept. The project goals and objectives: improve traffic safety and mobility. There are times in the city of West Lafayette, and it's usually between the hours of 3 and 5 o'clock every day, where State Street turns into a great big long parking lot. And in all reality, that's not a great way to get transportation from point A to point B. So we recognize that, and that's going to be one of the focal points of this project. To simplify our transportation network, I always get people that have a better idea of the way traffic flows around the university and around the city. We have realized that over a period of time that one-way streets are great for a while, because then people either gravitate to the secondary or the connector routes and they ignore the one-way streets, or it makes the drive around of that so cumbersome and time-consuming that they avoid them altogether. Wayfinding. That's kind of a new thing in city planning. We thought we did a really good job about 50 or 60 years ago when we put these poles in the ground and had these signs that said, Essex Street, Wilshire, State Street, Waldron. We realized that's good to let people know where they are, but it doesn't do a really good job of telling people where they need to go and how they need to get there. So we're going to be a lot more consistent and a lot more focused on getting our wayfinding signs out there. We also believe that there are a lot of folks, believe it or not, who come to the university because there's no way to get around the university. So we are now going to have a 4-lane dedicated perimeter parkway that will get all of the traffic that just needs to go either out to 231 and head north or south, a route to go without going through campus, or if they are leaving from campus, if they work at Purdue and they want to get back to Lafayette or they want to go to other places in different counties, they've got a beltway to get out of that concentrated, densely populated area and get out quick, a little bit more efficiently. We're going to construct new gateways. One of the things that we decided when we annexed Purdue and brought it into the city is we wanted to make sure that people knew where they are. And I've had this conversation with folks before, so if you heard me say it, I apologize in advance. But whenever you are a subdirectional of something, a north this, or a south that, or a west this, the presumption is that you are a subdivision or a suburb of that primary focal point. We are not the western side of Lafayette. We're West Lafayette. So we want to make sure that people know where they are, and then we want to make this unique compared to Lafayette. Now, if you have Tony and I standing up here together, you'll see that we are two different people. He's short, I'm tall. He's got a big voice, mine's kind of whispery. He acts like Tony, I act like John. We're different. And that we believe is the same about our cities. Our cities are incredible cities. They're fantastic cities, but they have their own unique and diverse personality. So we want to celebrate that. So we want to make sure that we construct gateways that are going to represent our cities. One gateway is going to be on the east, on the west end, which is going to be our innovation district, and I'll get into that later. And the other is going to be that gateway as soon as you cross the bridge and come into West Lafayette. Provide enhancements, our streetscape, pedestrian amenities, and parking improvements. Again, parking, no matter where you go on campus, is a priority. And we want to make sure that we do it in such a way that it's going to be accommodating to our visitors, as well as our student resident populations. And we want to make sure that we drive economic development and placemaking. Now again, economic development is really key for growing communities. That's the project scope. Does this have a laser pointer? This is basically the roads that we're going to touch. And a lot of what's going to go on here, people say, well, they already exist, so what are you going to do to them? Well, we're going to make some changes, and we're going to change it in rats. Okay. We're going to change it in ways that make the traffic flow more efficient. And a lot of what we're doing specifically in this area, into the levee area, is going to focus on pedestrian safety. Unfortunately, about every year we have a real serious situation between pedestrians and vehicles on this thoroughfare. Because what we've realized, and this has probably been most specifically over the past 5 years, is students have changed the way that they cross streets. And does anybody know the difference now? Yeah. They're doing this. And unfortunately, when you're looking down, you're not aware of your surroundings. And so we need to try and engineer a little bit more safety into that. And then we're going to go ahead and make some one-way conversions where we're going to turn them back to two ways, and that's specifically in the yellow. The purple area is the State Street proper. That's going to be from Tapawingo all the way up to 231. And then we've got some other connectors for Airport Road and our ring roads. We're going to put in some roundabouts. What's the general consensus on roundabouts? Yeah. You guys just rocked my world. Thank you for that. And we're also going to make sure that the traffic flow pattern is logical. And that's something that we try to make, we all have different belief systems in how roads should work. But the reality of that is that there is a logical and predictable way that they should work as well. And so we're going to try to accommodate that. The comparison of delivery methods, this is something that we did that's a little unique, and I'm not going to overburden you with this, but we are using a way that empowers us to get this done at lightning speed. How many people experienced the challenges of railroad relocation? Oh, yeah. Okay, real quick story. I used to be a police officer in the city of Lafayette. I retired there as deputy chief and worked there for 23 years. When I was a young police officer, my district was the downtown district. Okay, so I basically had the city and then the neighborhood just to the north and the neighborhood just to the south and stuff a little bit to the east. We had a female police officer who was pregnant and assigned to work in the dispatch center. Well, as luck would have it, she was getting close to getting into labor and was feeling rather uncomfortable, so she needed to get a ride home, so I volunteered to go ahead and take her home. So we are in my car, she's sitting in the front seat, and her water breaks. Oh, no. Yeah. Well, we get trained on how to handle that sort of stuff as police officers. And basically what you do is you get on your radio and say, I need an ambulance. Now. Well, anyway, so her water breaks. She's like, oh, John, I need to get home. Get out. So, no, I'll take you to the hospital. Well, guess what happens? At 9th Street. A train. I kid you not. So Kelly is just sitting there extremely uncomfortable and probably a little bit embarrassed. And I'm getting ready to do something that I'd never done before, is bring a life into this world. And so I undo my seatbelt, and the train's clanging and dinging, and everything's going off. And then I come around, and I'm getting ready to swing Kelly out of the seat and get her in the back seat. And fair enough, the train passes. So I missed that opportunity probably by 3 cars, truth be known. And her daughter, to this day, I think her daughter is, she must be getting close to 30 now. I always remind her when I see her, so, by the way, I was almost the first person you saw. Lucky for you. But the delivery method that we're using is going to empower us to get this done at lightning speed. A project like this, railroad relocation, which is what we use as a comparative, took about 20 years. To put that in real live citizen time, as soon as we were cutting the ribbon to celebrate the completion of the project, we had a work crew already doing repair work on the beginning of the project. We don't want that to happen. So what we're trying to do is use this process of financing, working cooperatively with Purdue, and then bringing in a construction company who is basically going to, consider this like an invading force. They're going to come in here with all of the necessary folks, all the necessary equipment, all the necessary technology to get this done as quickly as possible. The timeline is basically 3 years. And again, that is absolutely unheard of. The project funding, okay, that is a great big number, $120 million. And when you talk about building a road and you throw $120 million out there, it sounds absolutely fantastic. It sounds extreme. But we're not just building a road. For the city of West Lafayette, we are building a downtown. We are building a community. We are sealing the connectivity between the university and the city. Also, same thing between the city of Lafayette and West Lafayette. We are doing things that are going to change the dynamic of how people get around in this community. It's something that is really transitional. And the oddity about it is that we're not paying for this all on our own. And is there any retired administrators from Purdue here? Anybody that worked in the finance office? Okay. Because then I can say this. We tricked them, in a way. See, that was the cool thing about being an undercover cop, because you can tell somebody, look right in the eye and say, oh yeah, that's what's going to happen. But the fact of the matter is we didn't trick them at all. We are looking at this as a partnership and a way to incentivize growth and development in our community. The funding process involves tax dollars, obviously, but it involves pools of tax dollars. And we're involved in this TIF funding concept. I know Frank knows about this, but it's a TIF funding concept where the revenue that's generated in that particular area, that geographic area, stays in that area, and you can use it to fund projects that touch or have influence over that area. One of the biggest TIFs that we have now is the one that's on the brand new western end, out there by 231 and out by the airport. And that's called the Innovation District. And it's called that way because of what's going to go out there. Purdue University is incentivized to develop that area because that's their part of this project. That's their 60 million, actually closer to $70 million of this project. The good news is that Purdue is a pretty heavy hitter. When you talk about bringing in high technology, and you've got a research university that's known around the world like Purdue, things are going to happen. The other thing that really incentivizes it for them is if they don't meet that goal after 22 years, guess what happens? They got to write John a great big, well, I won't be around, but they got to write a great big check to cover that cost. So it's an amazing accomplishment to have that level of trust between two separate, basically state entities. And we are so appreciative for them to have that level of buy-in and belief into this project. That's what that backstop conversation is. It encourages the development. And the State Street developer pays for upfront for the entire project. So we have this group, it's called Plenary. They're the army that's going to be invading this portion of West Lafayette and Purdue. And we are paying them basically $120 million. And what that means is if anybody's ever been involved in a road project before, there's always a price that's agreed on, and then when the project is concluded, there's a price that's paid. And the reason why they differ is because there's this thing called change orders. It's kind of like when you take your car into the garage and they say, oh yeah, that'd be about 120 bucks. And then as soon as they get a part, they say, well, we found out that your gangster wrench and your assembly line product with the Knugle switch is broken. And that'll be another, 500 bucks. This doesn't happen that way. That number is in stone. In the event it should cost more than that, it does not come back on the financial team. They have to eat that. So, and then the other side of that is in the event that they can come under it, that adds to their profit margin. Okay, this is again the TIF districts. This is the new 231, the Innovation District. And just to give a little, there's 231 right there. There's obviously the levee. And I gotta find State Street. My eyes aren't quite good enough. But anyway, State Street right there. Is right there? Okay. This is where that Innovation District is going to be. And that's where a lot of that stuff that we've been talking about insofar as the development's going to go.
Is that the new downtown?
No, the new downtown will be more towards the Levee Village area. I'm sorry. And then let me get back. It'll be more down in this general area. It is. It's huge. Geographically, it's ginormous. And the one thing about West Lafayette is because we have had, historically, we're one of the more dense states. We have the densest city in the state of Indiana, and I believe we're 26 in the country for density. And again, that's because we have a university and a lot of stuff just goes up. We have a lot of population that lives on top of each other. So we've never been that big, but we've always had a pretty high population. This is the Innovation District that we're talking about. And again, just to provide some guidance, here's the airport, State Street, 231. Now the Hort Park is currently under construction. They put a child daycare center there, and they're realigning Todd's Creek. That's the creek that runs through the Hort Park. And it was a bit telling when we first started having conversations about that. A lot of folks were a little bit distressed because they thought that we were doing something to upset the natural resource that is the Hort Park. But the fact of the matter is that was done before, and we are putting Todd's Creek back to the way it was before the first developments went out that way. The Western Gateway here and the Aerospace Park are basically where a lot of this development is going to go. Any Purdue students, any of you guys live in married student housing when you went to Purdue? Okay, very well, you're relatively young, so. Well, a lot of that's going to go away. It's going to go away. Purdue has come to the realization that when we're trying to make ourselves, a top-class university and bring in a high quality of student, the accommodations need to be improved. So married student housing, a lot of those, I believe, served as Army barracks during World War II. They're going to come down. And they're going to put in a lot of high-quality residential units in there, and also have it mixed use. So we'll be generating tax revenue. So you will have something similar to, you'll have businesses down below and then apartments on top, or something similar to the service center, but that's actually going to be redone as well. This Western Gateway and the Aerospace Park is going to be where a lot of the heavy hitters are going to be doing their investments. Currently, we've got Rolls-Royce, who's going to be putting a research facility out there at the Aerospace Park, and we're in the unique position of having to not necessarily turn away calls, but we aren't actively seeking investment. They are actively seeking us. And this really is one of the perfect storms of being involved in local government. Oftentimes communities are doing anything and everything they can to recruit business and to recruit jobs. Here in Greater Lafayette, we're just the opposite. We have to be very selective about who comes to our community and make sure that it's the right fit. Like I said, Lafayette and West Lafayette are very similar, but we're very different and unique. So we want to make sure that what comes to our community has the right taste, smell, feel of what we believe will best serve our community. And one thing is smokestacks, we don't believe will be a very good fit in West Lafayette. So, and Tony likes that because he likes them over there. So that's a good thing. And this TIF, like I said, is going to be a primary fund generator for the Purdue component of the State Street project. The notable features, as I kind of alluded to earlier, it's going to we're basically going to be transforming a state highway into our main street. We've always referenced State Street as our main street, but it's never had that look. It's always been sort of a drive-through to get to different points on campus. We are going to serve our population with bike paths, trails. We're going to have streetscapes and amenities. And there's a reason for that. We have a lot of green space planned for this development as well. And the reason before that is that we have a new utility that we deal with. It's called a stormwater utility. We are responsible for the water that falls from the sky. So if we have impervious surfaces, we end up having to pay for that. So there's going to be a lot of green space and a lot of natural planting areas in order to maintain and contain the runoff. Quality of place. We feel very strongly that a university is only as strong as its city, and a city is only as strong as its university. Now, oftentimes when you look at university cities, there was sort of like a symbiotic relationship between the two. They grew at the same time. In Purdue grew a lot quicker than the city of West Lafayette did. I mean, years ago, there was this massive university, and there was a small little neighborhood that sort of hung around on the east side of the university. And little things sort of grew in conjunction with that. We feel now, because of what we're doing, we can truly change that dynamic and create a sense of place with both Purdue and the city of West Lafayette. And something that we cannot forget is because of our population. We've got this really large population of folks between the ages of 18 and roughly about 24. And then, believe it or not, we've got this sort of shallow spot, and then we've got another large population between 50 and above. And we feel very strongly we need to address a lot of the safety issues that those two populations require. With the young ones, it's trying to make sure that even though they're not paying any attention at all to the environment around them, that they're going to be treated with the respect necessary when they're crossing streets. And a lot of that has to do with the signalization that we put up. We've gone from we used to have just nothing, the light was either green or red, you just had to pay attention to it. Then we went to flashing lights, and now we're going into audible signals, and then timing, which assists people in knowing when to get across the street. And for our senior population, they're going to be marked much better and have ramps and access points that are more accommodating for folks to get, whether they have wheelchairs, whether they're in a position to where they need a little more time. That's going to be accommodated as well. Now let's have a look at what we're talking about when we talk about our vision. Again, if this is from state, this is State and Marsteller, and I believe that's St. Tom. Yeah. So this is the view. This is a fairly consistent vision of what we're going to be doing throughout the project. We've learned in over the history of trying to do some sort of street planning that there's these things called natural traffic calming devices. And what that is that we have learned that if you narrow the road just ever so slightly, that you will actually slow down traffic. You can have policemen sitting at corners, you can have flashing lights, you can have all kinds of things. But if the road is open and wide and you've got a long, clear path of vision, people drive fast. I live near Calbert Road on the north end of town. And between Soldiers Home Road and Salisbury, there's nothing but just basically a 4-lane road. And it is a drag strip. Not me, though. I'm too old for that now. Reflexes are too slow. So we're going to incorporate a little bit more narrow. We're going to involve green space. We're going to involve a bike trail and then a pedestrian trail. And again, this is where the technology is going now. A lot of communities now, they focus on making their communities walkable. And again, that encompasses rideable and skateboardable and whatever else you might want to have. And that's what attracts a lot of the young folks that are going to come and either go to school at your community or work in your community. So we're going to go ahead and address that issue. Stadium Avenue and University Street. Again, you see the general concept there. Green space is pretty important. I know that there's a maintenance issue that goes along with that, but we feel very strongly that having the appropriate amount of green space will help us as local government save money when it comes to that stormwater thing. And so that's something that we're addressing with, and plus it's more aesthetically appealing. What does a university town look like? Well, it doesn't necessarily look like an ocean of asphalt. It looks like something that's more accommodating. McCormick Road near Pickett Park. Again, pretty similar in appearance. And there is the trail system going up and down, and that'll take all the way out to all the way to McCormick Road. McCormick Road at Purdue West. Now we have, that used to be called, when I was a kid, that was called the Service Center, and now it's Purdue West. It was what?
Good night drugstore.
Oh yeah, that was a long time ago. Or no, not necessarily that long ago. Sorry, Mr. Reckerman. But and remember when they had the theater out there? Yeah, that's where I saw Star Wars, the first one. Yeah. It makes me feel old, I don't know. But what this is again another part of the thing that will empower us to empower Purdue basically to pay the bill. We believe that the service center will probably have a different look. We believe that they're probably going to use that in conjunction with that mixed use concept of having residential as well as retail there. Because the student population, one of the things that our research has shown us is that during the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, students wanted to live off campus. They wanted to be away from school. And so a lot of apartment complexes were built out near 52, and they were built out in Lafayette. And the students for a while lived there. Well, recent data tells us now that they want to be back on campus. They want to densify the population on campus. They want to be around each other, and they want to be around where things are happening. So we really believe that this mixed-use retail residential is going to be a boom for us, and it's going to keep our student population right where they need to be. Okay, State Street and River Road. Initially, that was going to be a roundabout.
Yeah.
Yeah, we originally had planned that being a roundabout. And we would have done that if it wouldn't have been so cost prohibitive. We would have, because of the budget that we were under, we would have had to shrink the size of the roundabout, which could have created a challenge with some of the larger trucks that go through there. Now, me personally, I said, so what? That's why we built 231, so they can go around there. But a lot of them are our farmers who are coming in to go on the other side of the river to drop off their grain. So we went ahead and stepped back from the roundabout. And what we're doing is we're using roundabout technology, but we're doing it in a standardized intersection. And what that means is we're providing safe areas, safe havens for our pedestrians, which has not been done before. We've had some unfortunate tragedies at that intersection specifically, and it's been because of the fact that you've got a 4-lane highway without any real separations in there. So we believe that narrowing the actual potential conflict areas, narrowing the scope of that will improve that. And also the timing, the signalization's going to be more coordinated. And we believe that with what's going to be going on there, that should improve the pedestrian flow back and forth. And this is the Chauncey Village and the South Street Plaza area. And with this, it's kind of interesting because we feel that the roadway is important, and including green space and having pedestrian access is important, but we feel very strongly about what is there, some of the businesses there. Some of you have noticed that there is a large building with a bunch of boards on it at the intersection of Northwestern and State Street. We are confident that that will soon be changing. We are also confident that the Chauncey Hill Mall will be changing. Because again, we feel very strongly, as you come up the hill, up State Street Hill, your first view would be of that area. And I know that the Chauncey Hill Mall has been there for probably 40 years. Yeah, 40 years. And the one across the street has been there for equally as long, if not longer. And we feel that in order for us to have the look that we want, we need to have the owners understand the spirit of this project and make it more accommodating for our student population. So what we'd like to see is that go away and have something that would be closer to the street front and give it more of an urban look, because that'll be our urban corridor. And that's exciting stuff. That is really exciting stuff. Because that's one of the things I get complaints about all the time, is that particular area. The proposed construction schedule is the utility, well, you can read it yourself. The biggest challenge that we have is trying to make sure that we do this when our massive immigration and migration periods occur. You know, when you have 40,000 people leaving your community, that is the best time in the world to roll up all the streets and rebuild them. So we are being very aggressive about how we're going to deal with that. What we're doing right now is called, if you've been down to the intersection of State Street and North River Road, that is separate from the State Street project, but it is a great learning opportunity for those of us in local government, because we've seen some of the challenges that taking out a major intersection like that can present. The only thing that's different is that one's going to last just a couple months before it's opened back up again. This is going to last 3 years. And this one's going to be a constantly changing target. But the fact of the matter is that we are going to be dealing with the easy stuff first. And a lot of what will not happen in a way that has the perception of being logical. I mean, you would think, build your ring road, and then start tearing up the stuff in the middle so people can go around. But unfortunately, because of the way the student population shifts, and because of the ease and the lack of, I guess, disturbance to some of those areas is critically important when you get involved in a project. So we want to combine doing the really easy stuff first with some of the hard stuff first. Because once we get some of these things developed, then we get straight into the State Street process. I mean, working from the river all the way up to, all the way out to 231. That's when it's going to get complicated. So if we need to get people off of those thoroughfares, we want to make sure we have those connector roads done. And then again, we're looking at a completion date of late 2018. So I apologize. I know I did that relatively quickly, and there's a lot of information to digest. But again, it's one of those things that we feel is probably, well, no probably about it. It's the most important thing that we've done as a community. And we feel very strongly that with what's going on both sides of the river, if you were to go away and leave the country for 4 years and come back, you would not know where you are. And our hope is that when you come back, you would say, wow, this is really neat. So I have no idea what my timeline is. Nobody ever told me how long I can or can't speak. So do I got to stop now?
Maybe one or two questions real quick.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Any word on a new West Lafayette City Hall?
I was trying to get out of here before that was there.
Next talk.
No. I want one. I mean, I'm in a classroom that I used to visit when we used to play basketball. When I went to Cumberland, we played basketball against Morton, so I scored my first few points there, I guess. But that is a conversation we have to have in the future, because it seems to be that there's two ideas. One is, and honestly, and I'm not making this up, as I was leaving, I was stopped by a citizen and said, hey, do you got a minute? And I said, about. And he said, can I talk to you about City Hall? And I've never had a 1-minute conversation about City Hall, ever. And he said, not here, to the north. Put it up in the north. That's where the population base is. That's where the citizens are. And I said, okay, but when was the last time you were at City Hall? And he said, well, it's been a while, but I said, that's what I mean. I said, I don't really know what City Hall means anymore. Does City Hall mean this wonderful palatial building that has the, 2,000 square foot palatial mayor's office with windows and servants and everything like that? Or is it a meeting place? Because nowadays I get more contact via email, texting, and my phone than I do people coming into my office. So we need to have that discussion, and we need to figure out what it is that those of you whom I serve, my citizens, what you want. Because we have property on the north end of town that we could utilize, and obviously we have property where we are right now that we could reconfigure and utilize. The presumption is that when we build a new downtown, that particular area will be our commerce center. So does it make sense to have local government in that commerce center? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a city planner, so we will have meetings about it. We'll do that when we do our strategic plan update, and we'll see what is the best right answer. Because there's no wrong answer, but there definitely is the best right one. So that'll be the next big thing. When the dust settles from this, and I get all the scars from that project healed, I'll get into that. I've been shot at and spit on and had people try to knife me, but there's been nothing as hard as doing these projects. It's just, wow. Next question. Steve.
John.
Yes.
Just in 30 seconds, you talked about what West Side can do and what Purdue can do. The one thing where it seems like it's outside your decision-making authority is the Chauncey Hill Mall. You said they need to buy into the spirit. What's the status of that?
They are buying into the spirit. I mean, this is one of the weird things. I mean, government is transparent. Everything we do, you need to know about, you need to be involved in, and all that stuff. This is a private sector conversation. There are two people that own basically that area, and they have been in negotiations to get that issue resolved, because they know that that development, if it's done right, will be the crown jewel of when you're heading west up State Street. That's my dream. I want that to be one of those things that's like, wow, that's cool. And we, honestly, Steve, close enough that we can smell it.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
What is downtown West Lafayette?
Just basically where you had that urban corridor from Grant Street, basically down to 231. A couple mayors ago, Sonia Marjoram, we all know and love Sonia, she started that concept when she put in the Wabash Landing. It's that where Scotty's is, and that strip mall that goes up to basically where the smaller businesses go to before you get to State Street. But the State Street project is targeting from the riverfront all the way up to 231. Now we've got academic areas, we've got some churches, we have some other things that are in there, but we want that whole corridor to be enhanced and represent what is downtown West Lafayette. Yes, sir.
When your term comes to an end, whether you're impeached or whether you quit or whether
And leave it to the major, right?
we want you to come back to Kiwanis.
Oh, please, I'd be more than happy to. Well, here's my plan. I think I've got 4 more to go, and that'll put me at 60. Then if you guys are generous enough to give me 1 more after that, then I can just retire. I'll be 64 then.
There Very good.
And then I'll be hanging out with you guys, yelling at the new mayor up here, saying, "Hey, back in my day."
Come back.
I guarantee it. Anything else? Thank you all so very much.
Mayor Dennis, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule. And we've got a small token of appreciation here for you to remember the Kiwanis Club. So thanks again for being with us.
Oh, thank you so very much, Jim.
Okay, all right.
Good job.